your WPFW 89.3 FM in Washington.
Listening to what's at This is What's at Stake, and I'm Reverend Graylin Scott Hagler, your host, every second Wednesday of the month. Our executive producer is Verna Avery Brown, and our engineer on the board this morning is Jerry Parrish, and we surely extend our greetings also to Michael Nasala, who's usually with us. We are a listener-supported program, and your contributions keep us on the air, bringing to you jazz and justice. We are bringing to you this morning the justice mandate of our mission. Now, affordable housing is a mantra in DC. Everybody's talking about it. And those words have become almost meaningless over the years because housing has become more and more expensive and unaffordable. The low wage and poor population have been removed from Washington, D.C. by market conditions and, according to many, by design. Affordable housing and public housing have become a shrinking entity in Washington, D.C. And a recent report from HUD, Housing and Urban Development, has cited D.C. public housing for being mismanaged, operating unsanitary and unsafe condition, misuse of funds, and the fact that many units have been left vacant. It would seem that the management of public housing has been done in such a fashion that officials can justify the total eradication of public housing. You have to ask the question, why would public officials disregard working and poor families in this way? Why would the district government, knowing the crisis in affordable housing, allow public housing to continue to disintegrate without a plan or a resolve to reverse the situation? We have two people that can bring to us some great insight today. Two leaders and advocates from Park Morton Development, Ms. Shonta High, president of the Resident Council at Park Morton, and Mr. William Jordan of the Park Morton Equity Team. I want to welcome them this morning to What's at Stake. It's good to have you on with us. And as we lead into our first opening to our conversation, Ms. High and Mr. Jordan, recently HUD came out with this audit of the DC Housing Authority and public housing, and it was scathing, finding that the housing authority mismanaged, allowed thousands of units to either sit vacant, fall into unsafe and unsanitary conditions. The Housing Authority Director, Brenda Donald, said she agreed with some of the findings, but disputed others. Trying to temper the report, she said the issues can't be fixed overnight and that they were operating with a sense of urgency and they had the residents first in their minds every single day. How do you respond to those comments?
Is Ms. High on? Hold on 1 second.
Yes, I'm here.
He's there.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Good to have you, Ms. High. And Brother Jordan, why don't you respond to those comments that she made? She tried to downplay it, obviously.
Well, of course she's going to downplay it because she wants to make herself look good in the position she's holding. I feel that, I have been a public housing resident for 21 and a half years. And I have seen quite a lot go on under her administration as well as the administration prior to her predecessors. I feel that Brenda Donald is hiding behind a cloak because she really wants to leave this position in a good light, but there's no way you can leave in a good light with so much damage that you've done, especially when you target the presidents of the properties you're trying to redevelop. And when you have presidents that speak boisterously about the issues, she tries to silence them. She is. Let me carefully word this.
Well, while you getting ready to carefully word it, I'm going to say a few things so we all don't get into too much trouble.
It's been difficult. Let's just put it that way. Go ahead, Mr. Jordan.
But you know, when the report first, when it was initially said that there was going to be a report, an investigation by HUD, first they downplayed it. Oh, this is just a normal review. There's nothing big deal about it. They do it periodically, and there's nothing significant or special about this review. Then a little bit more data information linked out. Well, yes, it's a little bit more than a normal review, but we don't expect anything that we don't already know about, but don't worry about it. And then, of course, once it came out, then it was, well, did I do that? Am I responsible? No, all of that happened before I got here. I've been trying to fix it since I arrived, so on and so and so. So it's all spin, right? And I think that's, I don't blame her in the sense that, I think she was asked to do something, told all you had to do was move a few buckets here, there, and you can ride off in the sunset. And she found out she was in the middle of a quagmire and couldn't get out. And so now this isn't a quagmire, this isn't a swamp, this is a vacation, we have it under control, there's no big deal. So we're just not getting good information. It's delusional, and we know it, they know it, and so we're just looking for a way out.
And let me point out that the issues are really systemic, right? It's not something that just happened. It's not something that has just occurred, but it's been a continuation of the same kind of disregard.
Yes.
Right. And it's policy. So it is not, and I think your point with some of us, it's not a conspiracy theory, it's policy. After the control board, the city, in order to drive up its bond rating, took anything that was viewed as a liability and put it in a special corporation that would be separate from the main government, so it would be off the books. And that's what public housing. They didn't want the responsibility of dealing with that population, and they didn't want that property. And at that time, that property wasn't all that valuable. And then later, as that property became more valuable, then they had to have an excuse to go grab it. And if the system is failing, then we have to go in and do something drastic. And that's what's going on. The deterioration is purposeful. That's just the reality.
Yes, it is. And I can speak to that because there have been many times we've called in what they call work orders, and the system changed over a manner of time. At one point in time, they used to give you your work order ticket number, and then all of a sudden they stopped giving you your work order ticket number. And one of these things I believe happened was because many of us were tracking the amount of days, because in public housing, maintenance has 21 days to fix the problem. Whereas when people are living in privatized housing, they have, I believe it's 24 to 48 hours, or I think the max is 72 hours to respond to a maintenance issue. And in public housing, once that 21 days is over and you call in, okay, nobody came to fix this problem. Oh, sorry, Miss High, we didn't get around to fixing the problem, but here's a new work order number that restarts the clock for that same issue. So it's over and over and over again. There have been, you should see my unit. It looks just as good as it did when I moved in 21.5 years ago, because I took the liberty of fixing minor things. If I had to let it go, the ceiling would be caving in over my head. Pipes would be leaking around my bed. All kinds of things would be going wrong.
Yes, yes. And so that points out the part of the problem, right? The fact is that there is really no legitimate and real engagement with the residents. Would you agree to that?
I do agree. They don't come out and speak to us and find out, they don't do real walkthroughs to find out, oh, can you tell me everything that's wrong with your unit? The funny thing to me is I have been complaining about so many things as a resident. And the minute that I became resident council president in 2017, they came, when I moved to Park Morton on May 8th, 2001, I had the very same night I moved in, there was a shooting, and I got a bullet through my kitchen window. I had a bullet hole in my kitchen window, and it stayed there up until 2017. And when I became elected, they came in, oh, we got to change this window. We need to fix this door. They literally upgraded my apartment overnight after I became resident council president. So I didn't understand, why is it that I had to move to this position for you to fix something?
In other words, you didn't count until you got to that position.
It was bad. It was really bad. And then I became that advocate for my residents, where I pretty much started slamming the hammer down like, no, you're going to fix this. You're going to fix it now. The trash needs to be removed. You're going to remove it now. The da-da-da-da-da needs to be done, and it needs to be done now. So housing authority really just got aggravated with me because of the way that I made them do their jobs.
I understand. And, one of the things I want to just point out is that the mayor and the chair of the city council, Phil Mendelson, they responded to this report by introducing legislation that creates what they call a stabilization and reform board that is supposed to oversee the DC Housing Authority. If it passes, and it's due to come back to the council, I believe next week, it will be an 8-member board which will replace the existing Housing Authority Board of Commissioners. Is there a problem with this bill? And if there is, tell us what the problem is.
There's a huge problem with it. Number one, you're exiling the residents' voices, because that board now contains resident elected commissioners. And those resident elected commissioners, they hold true to the voice of the public housing and HCVP. HCVP standing for Housing Choice Voucher Program recipients, or also known as Section 8. They speak on behalf of those residents.
And what's going to happen to those voices, Ms. High? What's going to happen to those voices?
They're literally silencing us. They're putting us in the corner as if it's, Big Mama saying, go over there and sit down and be quiet. We got this.
So let me get this straight. I understand that in the structure, basically, the group that will oversee it will consist of no residents?
No residents, except they say maybe two, which is the president of the citywide advisory board, which is Miss Rosa Burbridge, who is just as, spunky as I am. So they may not work or gel with her very well, because she's not going to keep quiet on the issues that affect the residents.
So there's this whole issue of trying to silence residents. And even when residents have been on the board, there's been obviously an inefficiency in listening to those residents. Is that correct?
That's correct. You can go back and listen to all of the Board of Commissioners meetings, and you can hear residents in distress saying, 5 minutes is not enough time to tell you all of the problems that I'm having with my unit. 5 minutes is not enough time to complain to you about the safety issues in this community. 5 minutes is not enough time when we sit here for hours on end and listen to you all vote and debate on your resolutions that obviously is going to get passed. Because every resolution, with the exception of after the HUD report came out, every resolution under the new chair, Dion Bussey Reader, has passed. They vote on it, and literally all of the mayor's people outweigh the residents' voice commissioners, the commissioners who voice for the residents. And every single time we're outnumbered and the mayor's people get what they want.
So this is an attempt to be in control entirely. Is that correct?
It's a power grab. Yes, it is. It's a complete and total power grab. This is a way for Mayor Bowser to, one, clean up the mess that she's made, to tie up loose ends, whatever that may be, and to pretty much seize control of all of the public housing. Because if you look at the people that she's appointing, all.
I think we lost you, Ms. High.
Yeah, well, let me jump in while she comes back. I think I see it slightly differently. What I see is the council trying to wash its hands of public housing and the residents who live there. I think the council is no longer, the city council, particularly Mendelson, is no longer interested in representing low, moderate income Black women. They're no longer interested in representing public housing residents, because doing that work is not going to be easy and it's going to be messy. It's not a way, if you're a politician, you always want to cut ribbons and look good. And doing this work is not going to give it. So if you look at what the bill does, even the council takes its seat and turns it over to a mayor. Have you ever heard of a council giving up power to the mayor? So this is the council trying to wash their hands of it. That way, they can walk away, have clean hands, while the development community and whoever else is going to make money off of redeveloping and privatizing public housing. And they can say, I didn't do it, the mayor did it. And so that's what this is. Can't be seen any other way. It's not a power grab by the mayor, it's a abdication of power and responsibility by the council. And that's the way I think it should be seen.
If you're just tuning in to us, you're listening to WPFW 89.3 FM. I'm Reverend Graylin Scott Hagler, the host of What's at Stake every second Wednesday of the month. And we're talking about housing, public housing, the development and redevelopment of housing with Ms. Shonta High, who's president of the resident council at Park Morton, and William Jordan of the equity team at Park Morton. Let me push back just a little bit. And something needs to be done. The public housing is in disarray. unsanitary, unsafe, vacant units. And it's been going on like that. So doesn't this make something able to happen to resolve the situation?
That's hard. Unfortunately, I was trained as an engineer. And so you can't just see something or say something. You actually have to be able to show that what you're putting together will likely at least lead to the result that you're talking about. So one of the first things you do in any problem solving is you set up your goals of what are you trying to achieve, right? So then based on what you're trying to achieve, you put together those tools and systems to achieve those objectives. So if someone says, if they don't tell you specifically what they're trying to achieve, what are they trying to build? So if someone just tells you it's an emergency, we have to do something, then that becomes the design goal, do something, and anything fits that bill. So it really has it really makes no sense. I mean, there's no logical way to come to the conclusion of what the mayor and Chairman Mendelson, and unfortunately, Bonds, Councilmember Bonds, have signed off on. There's only one conclusion, and that's the conclusion. Well, I won't say one, that's a little arrogant, but there's only one reasonable conclusion, is they don't want the responsibility. And then you would have to ask why. But I think what's more important is, and I think is, they don't get that choice. They ran for office. They said, we're going to represent you. And it's our job to say, you will represent me. You will represent these residents. You will make sure their voices are heard, because that's the job you signed off. We're not going to let you off the hook. And the same thing with those board members who will be going away, right? No, you're not going away. You're on the hook, and you're going to fix this. And that's the way you begin to get to solutions. So this is just I called it the Pontius Pilate day, where everybody washed their hands and blamed it on someone else. And, we just have to put it in. So if we want a solution, if you wash your hands, we're going to put mud back on them.
And let me be clear that the mayor and the council have not been doing the kind of oversight that is required. And so now they're simply trying to cover their tracks. Got a piece of legislation that they're going to make a bold move. Well, where was the bold move last month, a year ago, 10 years ago? Just hasn't been there. Hasn't been the will there. And so clearly we are in this place where, usually somebody will put this image out there. This is like rearranging the chairs on the deck of the Titanic, right? It's going down anyway, but you're going to pretend want the orchestra to play. You're going to do something, but it's not going to solve the issue. Miss High, it's good to have you back.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. I had a call that came in.
That's all right.
Disrupted my.
That's all right. Now I'm gonna switch to another subject, and that is, tell us what's going on at Park Morton.
Currently, all of Park Road and the single standalone building, 651 Morton Street, have all been demolished.
Okay.
It's emotional for me, excuse me.
It's all right.
Because I lost all of my neighbors. I lost my community, my network, my family, so to speak. They've all been scattered out about the city. When the city officials told us, you're all going to remain in Ward 1. We fought to keep everybody in Ward 1, even by finding a new place called The Wren on 965 Florida Avenue. But to our dismay, Councilwoman Breanne Nadeau stood in the way of all of that. She has been the problem with this whole situation. And we have been telling people for the longest time that she's blocking the Park Morton equity plan. I wrote an equity plan with my residents telling me exactly what they wanted to see and have for their lives in this redevelopment. We wanted at least 50% equity because many of us have been there generationally.
What does that mean, 50% equity? What does that mean?
We wanted to own, because they're selling the property. So TOPA rights, should have been adhered to, the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. And I don't know if anybody was aware of DOPA, the District Opportunity to Purchase Act, but our rights were not adhered to. So they literally just disregarded everything that we wanted as residents. So we pushed for 50. That's too much. That's too much. So I was like, well, we're not going any lower than 30% equity. We need at least 30%. So they have fought with us tooth and nail not to give us anything, even though Dante's partners, the community builders, the New Communities Initiative, which is the core team that makes up this redevelopment group, they're getting all of the equity. They're getting all of the money. Housing just passed a resolution to get $100 million for Park Morton, and the residents get none of it.
Well, now I know that you were fighting to stay in your unit. Where did that end up? Where did that fight end up, Ms. High?
They pushed me out. Brenda Donald saw me as and I'm quoting her verbatim, when someone asked her in January of this year at one of the meetings, they was like, so what's going on in Park Morton? Oh, we have an obstacle at Park Morton, but we're going to get rid of her. And so now they have resorted to pushing me out. And I told them that if I leave Park Morton, the place that I go to has to reflect a step up in life. I'm not moving from one dilapidated property to another. I'm just not doing it. I'm not going to put my family through that type of distress. So you have no idea how hard I had to fight, unnecessarily, mind you, to achieve a goal of being in a position where my family can thrive, can be healthy, can be seen as part of a community, a society that doesn't look down on us because we live in the projects, quote unquote. It has been hard, unnecessarily hard. And I know why they did it, because they've never had anybody like me to just hold them accountable and put their feet to the fire and call them out on every lie that they've ever told. So I have officially moved away from Park Morton. I'm in a house now, not far from Park Morton, of course, but I'm going to still be operating in my capacity as much as I can. I really kind of feel bad for my residents, because now that I'm gone, Housing Authority is going to take them to the cleaners. They're going to treat them so badly, and I'm not there to fight for them.
And our job is to rally around you and rally around them and do what all we need to do to make sure people are respected, that people are treated with dignity.
Amen.
Now, Brother Jordan, you're part of the equity team at Park Morton. Tell us a little bit of what does that mean?
Okay. So back in 2017, but then in 18, Ms. High decided, the project was stuck, was frozen. There's a lawsuit, there were funding issues. And so Ms. High decided to call together her residents, the community, to figure out how can we take this project forward. And also listening to her residents to determine what they wanted to achieve out of this project. They just didn't want to be moved around like pawns from widgets, where you move people from one affordable housing to another one to widgets. There was a community. There were people, and there were enough people, so they wanted to own. They wanted to own homes. They wanted to be part of cooperatives. They wanted jobs. They wanted to see their incomes grow so they could participate in this society. Because if you don't have money, I don't care whether you like it or not, if you don't have the money, you can't really participate in this society. So we sat down and we said, what if the residents of Park Morton had available to them all the tools that DIPED usually gives a developer, that the housing authority usually gives a developer, to try to achieve these goals. And we wrote those goals down. So all I did was put it in a PowerPoint. The residents and Ms. High set the vision, we wrote it up, and then we shared it so that we wouldn't be fighting over personalities, but we could talk and speak specifically about the issues. And so that was the germination of the Park Morton Equity Plan. And then we went to take that plan, and then we did a road show, just like any corporation. We went to the mayor people, we went to the council people, we went to other people saying, this is what we want to achieve. Help us achieve these goals. They don't harm the overall redevelopment goals, they enhance it. In fact, they help you meet it. And so that's where the equity plan came from, and that's what we've been doing ever since. So we don't say, they say your team, this is X, Y, Z. We say, no, all the tools of this government, private sector, we're going to go dig them up, and we're going to use them to improve the income, the stature of each one of these resident families. And that's what we did. We centered around the families, what we heard them want, and we wrote that down. We had 133 families, and we determined that a certain percentage should own. So we listened to them, picked the percentage, and that was our goal. We determined that each household income needed to get to $50,000. So how are we going to do that? Well, we need a job per household. How much wealth or how much savings do each family need to be in this Park View gentrifying neighborhood to participate for their children? So Ms. High has a young lady in college. So she's like, where's my daughter gonna come back to? Where's she gonna grow? Where's her slot gonna be in this society? So we took that into account for each family. So right. We just did, that's what, in essence, what the equity plan is and what the equity tool is that we just wanted to make sure that we took all those resources and made sure we hit resident-oriented goals, not just brick and mortar.
Is anything being advanced though?
So we made some advances. I mean, that's one of the things we're concerned. The board, the Housing Authority Board, that actually put some of that in a resolution.
Okay.
They didn't give us everything, but they put the core of what we call self-sufficiency into the resolution. And now we fear that the new board is going to toss that because Director Donald has spent 6 months dancing around enforcing that.
That's clearly the
resolution.
That's clearly the danger. I want to invite our audience to get in on the conversation. If you want to join in the conversation, you can. 202-588-0893 is the call-in number. Let me repeat that. 202-588-0893 to join us in this discussion about housing, about Park Morton, about the proposal that the mayor and the chair of the city council has put forward. 202-588-0893. Now, in terms of another announcement I want to make is that WPFW tomorrow is going to have a open a time together, almost like a town hall on Thursday, the 15th, tomorrow, from 12 noon to 8 p.m. And it's going to focus on successes in the DC community, gun violence prevention. And it's going to have a number of speakers. It's going to include themes such as changing the narrative, community support and mobilization, re-envisioning the police, music and the message, Sankofa lessons from the past to the future, increasing resources for what's working. That is tomorrow, December 15th, from 12 noon to 8 p.m. And I will join you back for a segment of that tomorrow. Invite our callers to join us, like I said, in this discussion as we continue on this discussion around housing. Now, what's going to be important in this, in terms of the equity plan, is if folk take the issue of empowerment seriously, they need to take in and engage that kind of plan. You know, it's interesting when I became part of the mayor's strike force for Black home ownership, and folks talked about wealth accumulation. And I had to remind folks that the first lesson is land security. Because if you're removed from the land, you can't build any future. You're just displaced. And so the issue is you gotta put an investment in people and not just in developers. We got a call on the line. I want that caller to share your comments with us this morning. Welcome. Go ahead, caller.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I really am thankful for turning on PFW and listening to this conversation. And thank you to the advocates that are working for the families in Park Morton. Generationally, my family grew up on Park Road. My great-grandmother, my aunt, my cousins, my uncle. Unfortunately, my uncle was shot at point blank range behind 640 Park Road when I was a young girl. And it's very, I want to kind of just encourage my fellow Washingtonians to encourage our youth to learn real estate, because coming out of the ghetto and my parents recognizing that we needed to understand how we're being hoodwinked and that our ancestors' blood is on the soil, and that we're not in public housing just because we will pull up ourselves by our bootstraps, but there are generational dysfunctions and traumas that were the onset of this. So we now, as the next generation and the generation afterward, have to take up the mantle as the king and queen here who are talking about advocating for equity, advocating for housing. So it's heart-wrenching, but this is a sound, the trumpet sound that we must get our youth involved in real estate and understanding to not be a vulture, but to bring light to your community and to educate your community and save grandma's house. So give thanks for this conversation, and peace and blessings and more prosperity to you.
Thank you so much, because I think that's an important issue that's pointed out, because if you don't make an investment in people, which is the communities in which people live, basically there's no hope. And if there's no hope, kinds of dysfunctionalism has a tendency to proliferate. And so you've got to make some investment in people, in neighborhoods, and in communities. We got another call on the line. I'm going to call. Welcome. Good morning to What's at Stake. Welcome. Go ahead, caller.
Thank you, Reverend, for taking my call.
Good to have you.
To your credit, Reverend Fauntleroy, back in the 1950s, when redevelopment land agency came into the DC, they came in here with the same lies, the same misconception that we're still dealing with today. And all credit to the sister who you're talking to now. She brought up some real old, new issues that this city has been doing with housing. And once again, this all started back in the 50s and the 60s when the redevelopment land agency came into the city with that same old joogie boogie. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you. It's good to hear your voice this morning. And, and we urge our audience, you need to get on the phone, get email, let your council member know that you don't want this proposal to pass as it is, that you cannot exclude the voices and the perspective of the residents. In fact, you need to elevate the voices of the residents, right? And listen to them who live in the midst. And that's how we begin to resolve it. Ms.
I wanted to quickly interject to your question, Reverend Hagler, because I do want to say there have been small victories.
Good.
So I want people to understand that supporting the equity plan, the team and the community who have been supporting Ms. High and the residents, we've had small victories, and we don't want people to give up, to think that everybody in the government is evil. No, it doesn't matter. You can make whoever it is begin to do the right thing if you apply the kind of pressure that's required. So even the council in the budget, we asked for 10 million. They gave in the city's budget, they gave us a $300,000 pilot program to matching savings programs, specifically targeting Park Morton residents, right? And so the goal is if residents save 10,000, then they can match it with 40,000. So 4-to-1 match. They put that in the budget. They put it in DSB, the banking organization that the city, banking oversight organization. So now our goal is to push them to actually implement the program. But then, of course, when it went in the budget, we said, let's plan and do it now. No, Mr. Jordan, we gotta wait, this bureaucracy, blah, 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 blah. So now we're in December, headed to January. And believe me, I reached out to everybody in the agency, and they kept giving me the bureaucratic spill. So what we need is people to call DSB and tell them, get this program implemented, get it out to the residents so they can begin to plan and save. Because residents, what people don't understand about public housing and affordable housing, you're penalized if you save.
Yeah.
You're penalized if you gain new income. So any new income is an effective 30% tax, but 30% goes to your housing.
We have another caller, Brother Jordan. I'm gonna go to them for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Caller, good morning. Welcome to What's at Stake. Go ahead. Is there a caller on the line?
Caller.
Go ahead.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I grew up in public housing in New York. I currently live in Maryland. I want to briefly say, though, that there is a program on public television that glorifies gentrification.
You want to say more?
Hello?
All right. Thank you. And
I just want to interject 1 second. I want to send my condolences to the caller who lost her uncle behind 640. I've seen a lot of that happen over the years that I've been living at Park Morton. I actually have a documentary on YouTube called Motherhood that shows a lot of what we as residents, it's my story, but it also speaks of what the residents had to live through. I was the one who had to speak out about the junkies sleeping in the hallway, the drug boys hanging out all times of the night. And, you know, it's unfair to us. And the equity plan, I got to revert back to the equity plan. We as residents want more for our lives. And under this equity plan, we've had several residents, including myself, to start businesses and nonprofits under the equity plan. I own High Alert Emergency Preparedness, which people can Google. We have Miss Contessa Allen Starks, who owns Keys to the World Travel Agency. We have Miss Sherry Spruill, who's developing her nonprofit right now, Queen of Resources. And Miss Erica King, she has a nonprofit, Evelyn's Blessings, and several other residents. So this just goes to show you that we're not sitting on our hands just wanting a handout. Some of us really want something better. We're trying, and we're being oppressed in a way that, like Mr. Jordan said, every time we get a little bit of money, they take it, or the government cuts off benefits, and now we're struggling. So it puts people in a place where if I'm gonna make more money and be penalized for it, I might as well just sit right here on my tuffet and not do anything.
We have another caller on the line. I'm gonna go to that caller and invite them to join in the discussion. Caller, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I think I was cut off.
Go ahead.
I think it is. Thank you. I think it really is important that PBS or the powers that be, whoever it is, has a program on the air that glorifies gentrification. It's this subliminal suggestion that housing that costs from $500,000 to $1,500,000 is the way to go in this region, and people are just brought into it. They show this pretty stuff, and I've looked online to see if anybody has a comment about this, and I've seen nothing that says what's the issue with this. Because it's this subliminal thing of this is how it should be. This is what we want. Let's go in this direction. Anyway, as I said, I grew up in public housing in New York, and it just offends me when I see it. So,
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I think it's important because some places where they know housing is unaffordable have made an investment in communities of subsidized housing, so that people are able to stay in those communities. And so one of the things that's important is how we begin to, I think, create communities and hold communities in place, which means that people got to have some ownership in the places in which they live. Ms. High or Brother Jordan, y'all want to comment on that? And I think that we might have another caller on the line, but
I'm sorry, the equity plan, we wanted to take the 630 and 640 buildings and convert them into co-ops with almost like a WeWork space down at the bottom, so that all of the business owners and nonprofit owners who are on site could run their businesses and serve the community at large. However, again, our Councilwoman Brianne Nadeau took the equity plan and saw it as a way to push the redevelopment forward, starting at the footprint. And now that we have this expedited, and I'm using finger air quotes to the radio listeners, and we have this expedited plan to move this redevelopment forward, they really just did not understand. Well, they do understand, they don't care how they have disconnected a whole community. Now we have people who live over in wards 7 and 8 with no transportation and away from their doctors, who have to come way back on this side of town to see their physicians, and have to go over to as far as Northeast or even to Eastover to get groceries. They're over in the food deserts with no transportation, and now, you know, it's ridiculous, and they don't understand the trauma that comes behind moving. There's a lot of disconnect, depression, and that will I ever see people again? And since people have started moving, I've been getting calls left and right. You know, this person died. You know, that person died. You know, that person died. And it is unsettling that nobody is caring about any of this.
So there's, yeah. We have another call on the line, I believe. And I'm going to take that one caller. We're running out of time. Caller, good morning. You're on what's at stake? Are you there? Maybe not. And
So I wanted to jump in quickly with the question. So what we've done is with our Park Morton equity plan is morphed a little bit. So as they come up with excuses, we come up with solutions. So our current solution, in fact, inspired by the work of the mayor's Black Homeownership Strike Force, is that we want phase 2 of this project, which is going to be across the street from where they're building, to be a resident home ownership phase. So we're asking the city and we're asking our supporters to push the city to redesign that phase to focus on 100% one way or another resident ownership.
we do have one more call. I'm going to take your call real quick. Go ahead. Go ahead, caller. Okay, you hung up. We're almost out of time. I just want to say this. Sister High and Brother Jordan, tell folks how they might get involved, how they might support you.
They can reach me, email me at Park Morton Resident, RESIDENT Council at gmail.com. And one more time, that's Park Morton Resident Council at gmail.com. I will email you back expediently. We need people to continue to sign our petition. That's on change.org. You can find it change.org/Park Morton Equity. Visit our website, parkmortondc.com, to see the work that we've done to fight for Park Morton. And just continue to support resident-owned businesses. Like I said, I own High Alert Emergency Preparedness. I got people prepared for COVID and so much more. My business is needed in this society. Please, y'all, we need people investing in us.
All right. And we are out of time. And I want to thank you, Sister Shonta High, President of the Resident Council at Park Morton, and I want to thank you, Brother William Jordan, of the equity team at Park Morton. And I want to just thank you, our audience, for being with us today on What's at Stake, for joining in on this very important discussion. We ask that you share your thoughts and your opinion with your elected officials on the DC Council, that as things come up for a vote, that you weigh in, you allow your voice to be heard, share your perspective. And I look forward to being with you again on the second Wednesday of the month. I would like to thank our engineer on the boards this morning, Jerry Parrish, who is filling in for Michael Nasala. And I want to thank the entire WPFW community. I can't wait to be with you again, sisters and brothers. Be empowered, be uplifted, and be blessed, knowing that we have a lot yet to get done, and we will do it. Take care, and thank you very much. Bless.
Thank you, Reverend Hagler.
Take care.